Okay, for example, take the consider the example, consider the linear system. 4 times x1 plus x2 minus 2x3 minus 2x3 is equal to minus 2. And then again 4 times x1 minus 8 times x2 plus x3 is equal to minus 21. And then minus 2 times x1 plus x2 minus plus 5x3 is equal to 15. So this is the linear system. It is given to us square system. That is 3 equations in 3 unknowns. Now first thing, write the system in the metric form. Once you represent the given system in the metric form, what you will get? The coefficient metric is nothing but 4, 1, minus 2, and then 4, minus 8, 1, and then minus 2, 1, 5 times x1, x2, x3 is equal to minus 2, minus 21, 15. Okay, so Ax is equal to B. Ax is equal to B. Now we are using the iterative method, particularly Gauss-Seidel iterative method. Gauss-Seidel iterative method. So in the Gauss-Seidel iterative method, what is the iterative? What is the setup? The setup is nothing but, generally the coefficient metric A can be written L plus D plus U times X is equal to B, because the Gauss-Seidel method is successive displacement method. So what will happen here? Only the upper triangular, means the previous unknowns will be changing every time. So here L plus D times X is equal to minus U times X plus B, and then X is equal to minus L plus D inverse, L plus D inverse times U X plus L plus D inverse times B. So this is the setup, and this is the metric of iteration, and this is a constant metric. That is a constant metric. So first thing, let us evaluate what is L plus D inverse. L plus D inverse times U. So that is nothing but H. So H is equal to minus. What about L plus D? L plus D is simply nothing but the lower triangular metric, consisting along with the diagonal entries also. 4, minus 8, 5, and 4 here, minus 2, and here 1, 0, 0, 0. Its inverse times the upper triangular metric. So what is the upper triangular metric here? 0, strictly upper triangle. 0, 0, 0, 1, minus 2, 1, 0, 0, 0, which is further equal to, which is actually equal to, can you give me what is the product metric? Evaluate the inverse and do the multiplication and give me the H. This is 0. Evaluate the inverse and then multiply, and finally give me the metric H. No, sorry, in the first equation, take it as minus. Okay, if you evaluate the h, then you will get 1 by 160 times 0, 40, 80, 0, 20, 60, and 0, 12, and 20. Okay. Which is further equal to, or let me keep it as it is. And then give me what is the constant metric B in the iteration setup. So that is also L plus D inverse times B. So that is L plus D inverse is 4, 0, 0, 4 minus 8, 0, minus 2, 1, 5, inverse, inverse, what is B? B is minus 2, minus 21, 15. Minus 2, minus 21, 15. What is the metric? Give me the constant metric at least. Basically, inverse is 1 by 4, 0, 0. 1 by 8 minus 1 by 8, 0. 3 by 40, 1 by 40, 1 by 5. This is minus 2, minus 21, 50. So minus 1 by 2, 19 by 8, minus 1 by 2, and then 19 by 8. That is also correct. What about the last one? Last one, there is some two people have answered differently. So let me answer it. So minus 6, minus 21, plus 120. So minus 27 plus 120. So 93 upon 40. So that is 93 upon 40. So now what is the iteration? So the k plus 1th iteration is, what is the metric of iteration? Metric of iteration is 1 by 160 times 0, 40, 80, 0, 20, 60, 0, 12, 20, times the kth iteration plus the constant metric, that is minus 1 by 2, 19 by 8, 93 by 40. Okay. Suppose now if the initial guess is given as 0, 0, 0, then for k is equal to 0, the initial guess is 0, 0, 0. This is xk. And then what about the error? For the first one, it is no. And for k is equal to 1, what we will get? X1 will be what? So this is completely 0. So you will basically you will get minus 1 by 2, 19 by 8, and then 93 by 40. And what about the error? Error is different, absolute difference between the corresponding approximate solutions. So here you will get 1 by 2, 19 by 8, and then 93 by 40 itself. And for k is equal to 2, perform at least three. Give me at least 3 approximate solutions. Up to 3. Find it. And please give me what is the second approximate solution and what is the third approximate solution. What is the second approximate solution and what is the third approximate solution? Okay, you evaluate later what's second approximate solution and what is the corresponding error, and the third approximate solution and what is the corresponding error. Okay, so you have to continue the iteration depending on the problem. Suppose if the tolerance is given, error tolerance is given, some epsilon is equal to some 10 to the power minus 1. Then at every step, you need to find out what is the error, and if approximate solution for all the coordinates for all the variables is less than epsilon, then you can stop the procedure. Okay, so it is given something 1.2325, 2.8462, and then 2.7937. Okay, so you complete this problem later. Now let us see under what conditions the Gauss-Jacobi method and the Gauss-Seidel method converges. Means what is the guarantee that the sequence of approximate solution actually converges to the solution of the system. Okay, so here convergence of iterative methods. The conditions, the necessary and the sufficient conditions we will see. So for this one, suppose if the first condition is if the coefficient metric A is strictly diagonally dominant, if the coefficient metric A is strictly diagonally dominant, then both Gauss-Jacobi method and Gauss-Seidel method converge. Converging means what? The method is converging means what? That is the sequence of approximate solutions will converge to the unique solution X. It converges to a solution, and in fact that X will be unique. Why? Because here if A is strictly diagonally dominant, then A is non-singular. By the way, what we meant by strictly diagonally dominant? A metric is said to be strictly diagonally dominant if, suppose assume that A is a square metric of order n by n, and A is said to be strictly diagonally dominant if AII is strictly bigger than the sum of j runs from 1 to n, j is not equal to I modulus of Aij. That is this must be true for all I is equal to 1, 2 and so on. Yeah. What is on this side? This is nothing but the absolute value of the diagonal element. And what about on the other side? It is the sum of the absolute values of the non-diagonal elements of that row. non-diagonal elements of that row. That is, if this is the square matrix and this is A11, then the modulus of this diagonal element should be strictly bigger than the sum of all the elements in that row. So the sum of all the elements in that row, all the remaining, all the non-diagonal elements in that row, and it should happen for every row. For example, if you go for the second row, then what is the diagonal element? That is A2, 2. Now the modulus of this one, is actually what should be strictly bigger than the sum of the remaining non-diagonal elements in the non-diagonal elements in that row, in that particular. Okay, and it should happen for all the rows. And if you look at the nth row, the diagonal entry is ANN. So the modulus of ANN should be strictly bigger than the sum of j runs from 1 to n, 1 to n minus 1. We can write it here, or to make the uniformity, let us write in this way. J is not equal to n, modulus of Aij. Here I is equal to n. Why? Because we are talking about, we are on the what? Last row. Okay. For example, you look at the metric that whatever we have started with today. You look at this one. What is the coefficient metric? The coefficient metric is strictly dominant, strictly diagonally dominant. Look at this one. 4 is strictly bigger than the 1 plus 2. And 8 is strictly bigger than the 4 plus 1. And 5 is strictly bigger than the 2 plus 1. So in all the rows, the absolute value of the diagonal element is strictly bigger than the sum of the remaining all other entries. Okay, such matrices are called strictly diagonally dominant matrices. For example, you take this this one, maybe 2, 3, 1, and 4, 6, 1, 3, 2, 8. Consider this matrix. What about this one? Is it a strictly diagonally dominant matrix? You look at the second row. In the second row, diagonal element is 6 and the sum of the remaining elements is 5. So the A22 is strictly bigger than the sum of the other. Okay, right. Now what about this one? 3, 2, 8. What is the diagonal element? 8 is the diagonal element here. And it is strictly bigger than the sum of the non-diagonal elements. Modulus with the modulus also. But if you look at for R2 and R3, that is fine. But if you look at the first row, what is the diagonal element? Diagonal element is 2. Diagonal element is 2. Here, as you can see that modulus of A11 is not bigger than the modulus of -3 plus modulus of 1. So the condition is not satisfied. So this metric is not strictly diagonally dominant metric. So if it is not strictly diagonally dominant metric, then what can we say about the convergence of Gauss-Jacobi method and the Gauss-Seidel method? Okay, we cannot say anything. We cannot say anything where this is the coefficient metric. Remember that. So far, whatever we are discussing on based on the coefficient metric of the system. Coefficient metric of the system. Okay. Now, so basically, what we have said, only we have said one implication. If A is strictly diagonally dominant, implies both Gauss-Jacobi and Gauss-Seidel methods, they will converge to the unique solution. Means the sequence of approximate solutions converges to the exact solution, and in fact, the solution will be unique. Okay, the system will not have more than one solution. Why? Because the coefficient metric actually becomes the non-singular metric. Okay. Now, what about the converse? What about the converse? Can we say converse will hold? No, we cannot say that. Suppose if the Gauss-Jacobi method and the Gauss-Seidel method, the sequence of approximate solutions is converging to the unique solution, then we cannot say that the coefficient metric will be of the form strictly diagonally dominant. Why? Because you take the same example. You take the same example here. Here we have already seen this is a the metric, the coefficient metric is a strictly diagonally dominant. It is strictly diagonally dominant, and hence we know that the system actually the sequence of approximate solutions converges to the exact solution. Okay, that is fine. That is fine. So now, may I know what happened to the system if I write something? Okay. So now what I'm doing here. So consider this system: -2, 1, 5, 4, -8, 1, 4, -1, -2. X1, X2, X3 is equal to -2, -21, 15. Sorry, it is plus 15. -21 -2. Now consider this system. Consider this system. Now you tell me whether this system will have a solution or not. Please give your answer. Whether this system will have a solution or not. What is actually this one? I have done nothing. Just I have interchanged R1 and R3. First and third equations were interchanged. For this system, we have already come to a conclusion that this system will have unique solution. Now, what about this system? Whether this system also will have the unique solution, or whether at least whether can we say that the solution exists for this system? This one, new system. How many of you say yes? Solution still exists. Solution exists. What we have done? We have done nothing. We have just instead of considering the first equation on the third equation, we have rearranged the equations. The order is rearranged. So the elementary row operations does not affect the solution. Does not affect the solution of the given system. Okay, solution exists. Not only exists. In fact, it will still have the unique solution. Why? Because the coefficient metric is still non-singular. The coefficient metric will be still non-singular. Why? Because A is a strictly diagonally dominant metric here. So A inverse exists. If A inverse exists, and if you do the interchange of some two rows or interchange of rows, then A inverse still exists. Whatever the resultant metric is there, that will also be a non-singular. If the coefficient metric is non-singular, then the solution will have, then the system will have unique solution. So in that way, this system will also have unique solution. This system will also have unique solution. Now, what about here the coefficient metric? If you look at the coefficient metric, is it strictly diagonally dominant? Whether the coefficient metric is strictly diagonally dominant? It's not strictly diagonally dominant. Why? Because look at this one and look at this one. 2 is not bigger than the 1 plus 5, and 2 is not bigger than the 4 plus 1. The coefficient metric is not strictly diagonally dominant, but still there is a solution. But still there is unique solution in fact. So the converse is not necessarily true. The converse is not necessarily true. So the strictly diagonally dominant of the coefficient metric is a sufficient condition but not necessary condition for existence of solution or for the convergence of the Gauss-Jacobi and the Gauss-Seidel method. Okay. Yeah. Now coming to the second one. The first condition is depending on the coefficient metric. Now the second one is actually depending on the metric iteration metric. Okay. Suppose in any method, whether it is Gauss-Jacobi method or Gauss-Seidel method, suppose if capital H is the iteration metric, what is the iteration metric in the Gauss-Jacobian method? In the Gauss-Jacobian method, what is the iteration metric? In the Gauss-Jacobian method, what is the iteration metric? It is minus D inverse times L plus U. And in the Gauss-Seidel method, what is the iteration metric? Minus L plus D inverse times U. This is the iteration metric in the Gauss-Seidel method. And this is the iteration method in the Gauss-Jacobian method. We generally will represent with iteration metric with the letter capital H. Okay, so let H be the H is the iteration metric of the method. Okay, actually, if you look at here, the strictly diagonally dominant here, the first condition does not doesn't require what is the iteration method. First condition does not require what is the iteration method. But here we need to emphasize it. Okay, the Gauss-Jacobian method, the iteration metric is different, and the Gauss-Seidel method, the iteration metric is different. Okay. Suppose if the spectral radius of the metric, what is the spectral radius means? What is the spectral radius? Define rho of H, that is nothing but the maximum of 1 less than or equal to I less than or equal to n modulus of lambda I, where lambda I is an eigenvalue of H, the iteration metric. So suppose if so yeah, so the necessary and sufficient condition for convergence of the method is spectral radius of the corresponding iteration metric should be strictly less than 1. Okay. Suppose in the Gauss-Jacobian method, there is an iteration metric, and what you should find out, you should find out all the eigenvalues and look at the magnitude of the eigenvalues, whether it is strictly less than 1 or not. If it is strictly less than 1, then the Gauss-Jacobian method converges. And if it is not only one side, it is necessary and sufficient condition. Suppose if it is bigger than 1, then whatever the method is there, whether it is Gauss-Jacobian method or whether it is Gauss-Seidel method, it will diverge. Diverge in the sense the kth approximate solution, the sequence of approximate solution does not converge to the solution, solution of the system of linear equation. Okay, so this is about the necessary and sufficient condition. What are the conditions? And suppose okay, and not only, by the way, not only this one, not only this is a necessary and sufficient condition. In fact, spectral radius also gives the rate of convergence of the method. Rate of convergence of the method. Rate of convergence of the method is what? Mu is equal to minus log of spectral radius of h to the base 10. To the base 10. Now, actually, if the spectral radius, obviously it is the maximum of the non-negative values. So as you can see that it is actually 0 is less than or equal to spectral radius of iteration metric strictly less than 1. Suppose if this is the 0 to 1, if the spectral radius is it is close to 1, then the rate of convergence is more, whereas if the spectral radius is close to 0, then the rate of convergence is high. Okay, as you can see that the log of this value, suppose as it goes to 0, the rate of convergence is high. Okay, so yeah, that's all about the necessary and sufficient conditions of the convergence of the Gauss-Jacobi and Gauss-Seidel iteration methods. Now, how these two things, how these two conditions are going to help us? So before starting the Gauss, when you are going to solve some problem based on the Gauss-Jacobi or Gauss-Seidel methods, the first thing what you need to check whether the coefficient metric is strictly diagonally dominant or not. Strictly diagonally dominant or not. Okay, if it is not, then what you need to do? You need to rearrange. You need to rearrange the equations so that if there is a possibility, I'm not saying that it is always possible. Okay, if there is a possibility, then what we can try? We can try rearrange the equations so that the coefficient metric actually will be the will be a strictly diagonally dominant metric. For example, assume that this is the equation 1, this is the equation 2, and this is the equation 3. And for this, in this order, the coefficient metric is strictly diagonally dominant, and hence it assumes the Gauss-Jacobi and Gauss iteration method actually converges to the unique solution. Okay. Suppose in the previous system, what I have done, I have rearranged L3, L2, L1. This is what I have rearranged. If I given the equation, if I given the problem with this order, then what you need to do? You need to interchange the rows so that the coefficient metric actually will become the strictly diagonally dominant. Okay. Suppose if the same problem is given with this rearrangement L3, L1, L2. Solve a system of linear equations L3, L1, L2. Then obviously, even in this case also, if you start the process, if you initiate the process following the same order, then the solution will definitely exist, because after all we have just done the interchange of equations, rearrange the equations, so the solution will be definitely there. So, but what actually matters? It matters about the how fast you are the solution, how what is the rate of convergence. Okay, so what you need to do? You need to first interchange it. Interchange. Suppose L1 and L3 should be interchanged if it is given in this order. So L1 and L3 and L2. Try whether it is possible or whether it is whether it will give you a strictly diagonally dominant or not. No. So again you try. So L1, L2, L3. Yes, strictly diagonally dominant. Now you start applying the Gauss-Jacobi method and Gauss-Seidel. if there is a possibility for transforming the system into a strictly diagonally dominant system. Okay, how to find out? The only thing is, suppose if you want to keep this equation, one equation in the as the first equation, you need to check the coefficient of the first variable should be bigger than the sum of the magnitudes of the other coefficients. Okay, for example, look at here, it is not going to be done. Suppose if I make this one in the first row, again it is not a strictly diagonally dominant. But if I make the third equation as the first equation, if I interchange it, yes, then first for the first equation, yes, it is. Okay, so you can interchange R1 and R3 so that you will get a strictly diagonally dominant system. Okay, so that's all about the convergence and divergence and about the rate of convergence of the methods. So for the rate of convergence, what you need to find out? You need to find out what is the first you need to find out what are the eigenvalues. So and the rate of convergence is nothing but the minus logarithm of log of spectral radius to the base 10. Okay, so anyone have doubts? Yes, it is allowed you to use the scientific calculators. So you can use using the scientific calculators, you can find out the what are the eigenvalues also easily. Yes, Amit Vikram, what is your doubt, man? Amit Vikram. Yes, speak. What is your doubt, Amit Vikram?
Sir, is the rate of convergence is like same for both the methods, or is it even higher for that Gauss-Seidel method?
Yeah, as you can see, the rate of convergence is completely depending on the coefficient metric iteration, not on the coefficient metric. Okay, row of heads. So obviously, in the Gauss-Jacobian method, iteration metric is different, and the Gauss-Seidel method, the iteration metric is different. So now, what is your guess? For which method the rate of convergence is more? How fast will we approach the?
The Gauss-Seidel method, I think.
The Gauss-Seidel method will have the more rate of convergence than the Gauss-Jacobian method. What is the reason? The reason is Gauss-Seidel method is a successive displacement method. Once we evaluate one variable approximate solution, then immediately we are going to use in the same iteration. Okay, in the same step we are going to utilize it. But in the Gauss-Jacobian method, in the first one iteration, we need to evaluate all, depending on the previous iterations only. But in the Gauss-Seidel method utilizes the values from the previous as well as the present iteration also. Okay, so that is where this unit is completed with the Gauss-Jacobi and the Gauss-Seidel iteration methods. So I hope everyone is practicing well with the test books. If you have any doubts, you are most welcome to ask. Thank you all.